Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Ruth. I will be the chair. I'll allow my executive as well.
I'm Jane.
Okay. Sorry. We also need to find out who's speaking first initially. Sorry. So in opening government.
I'm Sandra. I was for he.
And
I was being second. She'll
opening opposition.
Naomi.
He.
Closing government. Okay. Closing opposition.
Mehmet. He.
Fikret.
Okay. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to defend the motion stands in their name. Thank you. Can someone type? Yeah.
Shall I begin? Okay. Hello. Today I have two arguments. First, by including those psychic Christians, we are increasing our base, and those base, this base will be loyal to us because they are also excluded, because they are not at ease with the Christian community. And second, it allows us to spread our narrative, and battle that narrative against LGBT. But first, I will explain the status quo. What is that? How we will include them. We will include them. We will recruit them, and we will bring them to our meetings, and we will make them count us in front line in the demonstration, and we will say that you are not covered. You might have religion, but we accept you. Since there is a narrative in the Christians that you're Muslim, you're not religious, you have no moral, and you don't belong to the society, and because of that, they're excluded from their society, from their Christian community. And if we open our arms, then they will come to our shelter, and thus and because of that, because of that, they are loyal to us. And however, we have to accept that those people are connected to their beliefs later on. And these people are connected to their beliefs from their childhood. They are taught that those activities are sins. They are homosexuality is horrible, and if you do that, you're under threat of eternal punishment in the hell. You will burn. You will torment in the hell. And because of that, they don't. They cannot accept their LGBT identity, and they are not comfortable with their LGBT identity, and we are trying to make them more comfortable with their LGBT identity. And if we succeed in this, and we will succeed, they will be more loyal to us. We will have a greater base that will fight for cause. From the close.
Okay, how do you convince these kind of people? Because they are aware of the fact that they are producing sins while they are supporting us.
no, we say that these people are not also at ease with the Christian community. Uh, and because of that, they are discouraged from equality. And if you welcome, if we give a chance to if we give a chance to meet us, they will see that we are not as horrible as they see. We are not as monsters as they see. And we also have moral values because we believe that the narrative spread by the church is based on preconceptions and they are thus incorrect. And they will see that we are also normal people, and because of that, uh, they will have a better opinion about LGBT groups. My second argument is that it will become a much bigger tool to combat homophobia spread by religion. The impact is that the biggest source of homophobia currently is religion. Across the world, in Africa, in the United States, in Russia, in Latin America, the church expressed narrative that those homophobic people, those LGBT people are monsters. They destroy our social order. They destroy our family structure, and they have no morality. And because of that, they are bad people, and they will burn to hell. However, these arguments are not entirely based on a biblical order. They are not condemning LGBT just because they do not obey a simple biblical order. The narrative based on that, they are bad people. They will harm you if you connect with them, if you show affection to them. However, those people, if those people become more, if those people accept their LGBT uh, uh, identity more later on. They will be able to talk about LGBT in the churches in the Christian communities more. If they speak about this identity more in this Christian community, those Christian communities will see that okay, those people are not as horrible as we thought. They are not good. They are not the sort of social order, and also that there are and they are not the least moral people in the world. They still have moral values. They still obey with the other Christian values. They are as religious as we are, and because of that, their preconceptions about the LGBTs will decrease, and because of that, or the homophobic narrative will be reduced. And when it happens, or the homophobia becomes reduced, the LGBT people becomes more comfortable with their identity, and we are also helping a double disadvantage group, which is that because if we if we do not help this group, if we do not embrace this psychic Christians, both LGBTs are hating them, Christians are also hating them. Everyone hates them, and and we are also embracing them, helping them. Because of that, LGBT groups should embrace psychic Christians. Thank you.
I thank the Prime Minister and would like to welcome the Leader of Opposition.
In this debate, we see two main groups of people that are going to be hurt by this decision. The first group is the LGBT movement and the goals of this movement and what they're trying to do. And the second group of people who are going to be harmed by this are the current members of the LGBT movement, and I'm going to explain why this is going to be incredibly detrimental to them. Before that, three short points of rebuttal. The opening government did not had a giant logic jump by trying to while they tried to explain how Christians being accepted into this group is going to suddenly make all Christians and all religious people less homophobic towards homosexual people or people of the LGBT community. We don't understand what I fail to understand what benefit we get from including these people because I'm going to explain why including them is going to be very harmful to the rest of the group. We don't understand what the end goal here is regarding these persons. Do you want them to abandon their belief in celibacy? Do you want to cause them to be accepting and abandon their own self-belief that they shouldn't have homosexual relations and suddenly make them uncelibate? We do not understand what the goals of government is. So on to my first point. I want to explain to you what the purpose of the LGBT movement is and what it's trying to do. The LGBT movement is trying to make the world a safer place for people of the LGBT movement, and it's trying to make better laws, equal rights, have LGBT people be safe and be able to have pride in their self-identity. And I want to explain to you now why this delegitimizes the very the fundamental things that that the LGBT movement is trying to advance. When you include these people, and like a government said, they're going to be in the front line of the movement. It was said by open government, going to be the front line. The people that you're putting on the front line are people who think that your type of sex is a sin. They're standing with the movement when they don't believe it's one of the fundamental things that LGBT movements have fought for. They fought for the right for homosexual sex to not be a criminalized thing. They fought for it and they won it in many states. We see even more advances now as far as legalized gay marriage rights and transgender rights. And when you put people on the front line where they say, I mean, yes, we have these homosexual feelings, but we think still that the fundamental right to your autonomous body is a sin. We don't believe it. You're actually delegitimizing the purpose of the government of the movement, because then governments who might have been willing to listen to this big movement and been able to say yes, these people deserve the right to be able to sleep with whoever they want. They're now saying, wait a second, if people who are on the front line are even saying, like, actually being able to have sex isn't that important to us, what incentive does it give to governments to actually change laws when the people on the front line are saying, no, actually it's not that important to us. I mean, like, we feel it, but we're okay with not actually acting on behavior, and we're now the front runners of this group. No, we're not. So, as I said, in a group where its entire purpose is to advance the wellness of people in their group, and the main front runners of the group are people who don't believe in the fundamental basic right that these people have to have their autonomous body and do whatever they want with their body. You're undermining the main purpose and goal of this group, which is to advance the rights of these people. And by saying that some rights aren't actually important and we don't need it to have self-fulfillment, you're taking us back 50, 100 years in the movement in the LGBT movement. Now, my second point is how this is detrimental to the current members of the LGBT community. We know that there are a lot of members of the LGBT community who have religious backgrounds, who, when they were growing up, through adolescence and teenagers, they had to reconcile their religious beliefs with their LGBT feelings. And many people who grew up hearing homosexuality is a sin and you're going to go burn in hell, grew up knowing that they have these thoughts, and when they became an adult and when they were able to make decisions for themselves, they had to suddenly reconcile their feelings with what they were taught. And then they found the LGBT movement, which said, actually, you're okay. You're not going to go to hell. You deserve to love wherever you want. You deserve to do what you want with your body. And it gave them a safe place. Now, when we include these people into the group, you're bringing back the voices they heard from their entire life growing up. No, you actually are. This actually is a sin. You are going to burn to hell. And all of that self-improvement and the self-love that they were taught and that pride that they got from the LGBT movement is now erased. And they're going back. And it's incredibly harmful to the members of this group. Now, the government might come and say, but don't these side-B Christians deserve to be included too if they're excluded from the church? So we agree that it's very sad that these people don't have anywhere to feel accepted, but we do believe that the LGBT movement can afford to include these people where their inclusion in the group is detrimental to the entire rest of the group. We believe that the wellness of the majority of the LGBT movement is more important than these few people, even though we do agree that it's very that it is a pity that they might not be able to find a place where they feel like they truly belong. Now, as I said, with people, when you spend years building up your pride and your self-love and accepting who you are and being told it's okay, and then having a front line saying it's not okay, you don't deserve it, and it's a sin, and you should be able to suppress your feelings. And we think that the right thing to do is you can have those feelings, but suppress them. You don't need to do that, and you can marry someone of the opposite gender and not have a great time because it's a sin and it's worth it. Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
if you think those people being part of the LGBT community is harmful, potentially, undermining the values they have already gained, would you also ban them when they want to freely join the LGBT movement?
If these people are preaching in the LGBT movement to other members of the LGBT movement that their sex is sinful, yes, that's hateful to the rest of the group, and there's no part of it. We cannot have a group where one member of the group is telling another member that you are illegitimate, you are not allowed to feel the things that you're feeling. You can feel them, but they're wrong. That is completely illegitimate, and we cannot risk the safety of an entire group who has worked so hard to be legitimate, so hard to be accepted, and to be told that they're okay because of a small minority, even though we agree that it is a pity that these people cannot be involved. Now, if we're talking about people who this is what they believe. They believe that they can reconcile their feelings with their belief. We're talking about people in the group who can and have done it, even though it's very, very difficult. We don't want these people to be damaged. We can't afford it. It undermines the movement as a whole because it undermines the importance of sex in a person's life, including an LGBTQ person's life, and not just in cisgender straight people's lives. Because it's telling the government that it's okay, we don't need it, they're the front runners, and if they say we don't need to have legalized sex or legalized marriage because we can suppress it, then nobody else deserves it, and it delegitimizes the entire purpose, and it brings us back to a place where it's not safe for people anymore to be LGBT. It's not safe for we no longer have those equal rights, the equal right to have sex with whoever you want and feel safe doing it, because now you're putting on blast these people who say you can live without it, and in fact it's better if you live without it, because living with it is actually a sin and you're going to go to hell. So for all these reasons, because it's detrimental not only to the fundamental beliefs of their organization and what they're trying to achieve, it's also to the members who have worked very hard to reconcile their beliefs and their feelings, and for all those reasons, we beg you please to oppose.
I thank speaker for that speech. I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister here.
I think what the opposition doesn't quite understand today is that a person who is slightly Christian and someone who dresses not so like a Christian, or like someone who isn't afraid of as kissing someone of the same sex, walking together in parade is a core principle of the LGBT community, and we will talk about that. So, firstly, I will actually mechanize a bit more about how these people will in the long run be coming into the LGBT community. And second of all, I will talk about the core principle of inclusivity. And third of all, how in the long run this will actually help us commodify the opposition that we put up into destroying some part of homophobia, which is like the religion-based homophobia. So, but a few rebuttals first. Like I said, a Christian person walking in front of the pride is not actually them being like the leader of the LGBT community, but we actually want them to be as equal as others, and we actually want them to be as loud as others on there. So we do not think that that's actually a falsely claimed homology. So I will start my arguments now. So to understand that how will these people be coming into the LGBT community when we implement this policy, we have to look at the Bible first. When you look at the Bible, these people have a narrative of hate the sin and not the sinner. They have belief in repentance. They believe that they are being tested by God, but God doesn't hate them because God doesn't make any mistakes. So they have cognitive dissonance, meaning they can have like two contradictory ideas. Like they can be homosexuals, but this doesn't mean that they will necessarily go to hell. So they already have some form of like a mechanism to live their lives by not going crazy. So that they actually have some compensation mechanism already, and we can actually use that mechanism to actually lead them to our movement. And when we do that, it will be actually very beneficial for us. So and also notice that because they have not done that, like most of the LGBT people who are Christian, remain they try to do conservation therapy and everything, it doesn't mean that they will keep doing that, because before they haven't actually been offered this choice of being accepted as both of these labels, that you can actually label yourself as both LGBT and Christian. And when we offer them this opportunity, how they will not actually, like, they will absolutely not go that way, is, I think, the government is on the opposition on this side. The other thing is this, like, how will Christians have to accept them, at least in the long run, and how this will actually, like, help us commodify the homophobia they face into our side. So the current homophobia in, like, most of the countries in the world, like, let's say in Latin America, in some countries in Africa, and in the US, and in Europe, is, like, commodified through the church and through the press, like, speaking things like how, like they try to like, link this LGBT people with the anti-Christian values, and one of their core beliefs and one of the things that they build their homophobia on is that the LGBT people are fundamentally anti-Christian. And when you actually start challenging that idea, like never before, and I explained, like, how more people will, in the long run, they will actually see more representation of LGBT people who are also Christians, and they will actually see that as a valid option. And when they start doing that, let's say if you are Christian and your like, neighbor comes out, and your son comes out, and your mother comes out, and that, then what that does do is that it actually challenges that idea of, like, you cannot be Christian, like, you cannot have belief and LGBT, and by challenging that core principle, then we start destroying these little mechanisms that were built on that idea. And now you have people who go to church, but they actually know people that priest says that doesn't exist. So this starts a mechanism of, well, maybe not everything they say is true, and this might not happen like it suddenly, like they might not go, oh well, I'm like supporter now, but their child, and like they might actually think that through the years, and this will actually create a mechanism that will actually destroy some of this homophobia that is faced in these countries. I will take
we don't have a problem with Christians who don't think homosexuality is a sin. If you're a Christian who says homosexuality is a sin and therefore is legitimate, we have a problem with those people in our group who are going to be detrimental and very harmful to the people.
The reason that cognitive dissonance exists right now is that haven't been a valid option before, but we think that this will actually destroy itself in the process in the long run. And for that to actually happen, we have to actually like let some of that principle go. Like, it might not be actually like very nice to hear that if you're an LGBT person, but in the long run, the reason these people exist is these mechanisms, and without destroying those mechanisms, you can actually destroy the thinking that those people have. So the core principle that we have today as the LGBT community, I think, is inclusivity, and like opposition does nothing to actually destroy that. So what we are all here for is that we are not cisexual, we are not heterosexual, and we have been discriminated for all our lives because of their inherent qualities. Everyone hated us because of those, and we hate these. If we actually like start reinforcing this idea that, well, if I feel like you do not belong with me, then I can somehow like not I do not let you be with me, then there is this like idea of in the church through the Christ that we are the hateful ones, that we are actually also discriminatory, that they are not actually our fault. But when we show them, well, we discriminate too, like how these Christians will actually think, and you have to think, like in those churches, how this will be commodified into other homophobic rhetoric, and to destroy their rhetoric, they actually have to have these Christian people who also come out as LGBT. They might not be able to like fully accept themselves, but if they accept themselves to some degree, and they actually say, well, I am here and you are wrong, and I know that because I believe, then we actually challenge that idea. And that is also very, very important, because we have like many kids growing up in like Latin America, and in those countries, their only source of like knowledge is the church. When we when that kid sees your representation in the TV, then that kid will feel immensely valued. And that is why we are here for, and that is why we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank speaker for that speech and would like to welcome the DLO to finish the first half of this debate.
Okay, dear panel, I think that everybody in the room and both opposition and government are going to accept the fact that we want, each side want for the favor of the Christians and how we can actually improve modern life and the LGBT interests. The real question is which group in this debate give you the best improvement and the most of the practical interests benefit. Therefore, I'm going to explain to you why in my first speech that the practical harms of the big Christians in their community they grew in, right? Before that, I'm going to have 3 points of external rebuttal. So the first point, the opening government tells us that right now big Christians do not belong in any group, they are hated in every place, and therefore we should belong them to one group so they will feel actually better. But it is not true. Why? Right now, Christianity actually use those big Christian as indication. You can actually give out of your sexual preference because Christianity is more important for you, and therefore we have indication for members of Christianity that in the hierarchy of sexual preferences and religion, they put above the religion. Actually, it's good for the Christianity to include those members because they use them as to convince more people to give out on their preference and to stay more religion. So they are actually belong in the Christianity. They say, well, if the community, they grew in is important for them, we have to think what is the best alternative for the big Christian to stay. Because listen, those big Christians have an interest also to be part of the community and also growing. Why? Because most of the family are part of this community. Most of the friends are in that community. Most of their acquaintances in the workplace in that community. So therefore, if we actually convince them to move into the LGBTQ community and give up for the religion values, they will be actually outsiders in the Christianity group. Therefore, they actually give up on most of their life quality in those Christianity, and that is actually practical. Second point of liberty. Opening government tells us that we give them opportunity to belong in the LGBT and also Christian. Now they can have both in each world. It is not true, because if they are going to be part of the LGBTQ, they are not going to be part of Christianity. Maybe they are going to have the title. Maybe they can say, well, I'm a Christian, and well, I'm also part of the LGBTQ. But practically what it says, that they are not going to be belonging to Christianity because they are not going to accept them. Therefore, the title doesn't matter. What's most important is the actually practical harms they are going to suffer from. Third point of rebuttal is that big Christians, as they say, big Christians will be convinced in the long run and won't harm any other members in the LGBT community, right? And our answer is, even if it's true, you will convince them not to harm any other members in the LGBT community, and they will be convinced it's all right. Still, practically, they're giving up on their society they came from, which is most of the family are not going to accept them because for them Christianity and religion is more important. Most of their workplace, the workplace they're working at right now, they're going to be also an outsiders, and there was no any explanation why being part of the LGBTQ is actually more important than actually practical lives in your community. And on that part, I'm going to give you my point and explain to you why community and why actually convince them to join LGBTQ, put them actually on higher risk and not going to prove their practical life, and that is why we actually engage. I will take you later. Thank you. Improve most of their life. So, what are the practical harms for big Christians, and why LGBT community don't have the legitimacy to intervene in their life if they cannot promise them a better place? Right now, is LGBTQ going to intervene in the big Christian's life, and they are not going to promise them a better community to belong in? Here are the practical harms. So, as a quick framing, we all agree, probably in the room, that community affects my life quality. I don't think someone is going to engage repeatedly. So, what it actually means, community affects the way I want to educate my children. Community also affects my family. Community also affects my inspiration and the way I can actually achieve them. And we say, here is the impact in this debate. And here's something too important actually to mark down. Because if we Christians will be outsiders in the community they grew from, they are going to lose all the benefits and most of the beliefs. And we cannot promise them actually better place in the LGBT community, because most of the community you are going, and this is a reality check, is affecting your life. Before I begin, I would like to engage second house. Yes.
Your argumentation stands on the assumption that all those IP Christians are currently active members of the Christian community, which in large cases is not true. They are being discriminated against, and they are not actively always part of that community.
It is not an assumption. It is not an assumption at all. Actually, in reality check, if I'm a Christian, if I consider, the more I consider myself as a Christian, and more sexual preferences I have, and I will join the LGBTQ community, the community I came from going to look at me as an outsider because I actually violate really strict rules in the Christianity. And if they are going to be like friends of mine, they are going to be close to me, there is like a risk of being related to me, and therefore I'm going to be outsiders from the places I belong to and I grew in. Here is the relevancy and the importance of our arguments in this debate. And here is what you should look about. Life quality is a crucial criteria in this debate for deciding if we want to intervene in their life or not. This is actually, because if you cannot improve their life quality, which is family, which is education, which is their kids, which is their workplace, and the only thing we can actually provide them is more sexual freedom and in the price of actually risking most of their life, therefore we don't have the legitimacy to compromise it. For those reasons, I beg you to oppose. Thank you very much.
I thank the speaker for that speech and would like to welcome the member of government here.
So, we've been presented a case of exclusion of different spectrum of homosexualities, of all their sexualities. To say that LGBT group is one and knows how it goes. Well, our case differs. But first of all, I'd like to rebut a couple of things. But firstly, this group of side B Christians, would they be better or worse off? But first of all, I'd like to say that you can interpret Bible, you can interpret your religion, you can say that God forgives you or won't forgive you, but one thing you can't interpret is your sexuality. You cannot hide your erection, you cannot say that no to those thoughts, they are still there, and we want this person to be in peace with his religion and with his sexuality. So our goal in this case is to show you that side B Christians need LGBT community, such as gay Christians, a different community, who are Christians, who are gay, who are accepted in LGBT community, and who are at peace with the religion at the present moment. So what we want to see is that also side B Christians should use and have an active use of LGBT community. Now, firstly, I'd like to say, what's the harm of side B Christians being within the LGBT community? LGBT members already know that Christians see them as sin. LGBT members already know that somewhere they're hated. Now, if they have the very same person next door or in the same community, there's no difference. The only difference is that this person with side B Christianity shares the same sexuality with them perhaps and has the possibility of actually being better off after they got in contact with you. Which means that they're seeing that their community is not only this Christian community that is radical, but their community is also supporting and has the same kind of issues as they do. Now, the second thing in this case is that we want to ask, thank you, what kind of Christian community are they actually speaking of? Christian communities wide and spectrum. As we see, there are gay Christians. As we see, Pope says something. As we see that a church says another thing. No one agrees in church anyway. So if they're saying that now there's a common church saying that it's not okay and pressuring you, then we say otherwise. We say that there are so many different churches, and we see that we want to rather push this person towards to a gay-friendly church rather than gay therapy. Now, to another point about this community. Well, what we need to see is that we need to be in their community. They're saying that we're, like destroying side B community, we're destroying the social life, we're destroying everything they have. No, what we're saying is that LGBT community has to be there to be a safety net. To be a safety net, no, thank you, sit down, to be a safety net in cases of something going wrong. And we don't want to say that every side B Christian is going to be either hardcore Christian or either hardcore LGBT member after that. What we want to say is that they have another choice, and that is what we want to give them. Do you have any questions now, or should I go to my own constructive material? Closing.
Okay, you are saying that we have to save side B Christians, but is it friend or foe? Do we have responsibility against towards them or not?
Well, I didn't understand the question. Are they friend or foe? Well, then neither of them. The LGBT community members, as everyone over there. There are no friends or foes. We shouldn't polarize this kind of situation. Now, to my first argument, what kind should the movement be? The movement should be, in our case, open to everyone. We should include everyone, not exclude. What they're trying to case split at the present moment is something kind of like church. If we don't like the spectrum you have, you should be excluded. No thank you. Well, what we're seeing is that we don't want these kind of dogmas into the LGBT community. What we want to say, as the name itself says, there's a wide spectrum of sexualities and wide spectrum of choices. Now, with this wide spectrum, what we need to see is that we need to recognize different thoughts and different sexualities. No, thank you. Inside of this community, what we want to see is that this side B community wouldn't be pushed away towards another radical church, pushed away to somewhere else. Because what they're doing at the present moment is that they're confirming their own fears of sinful sexuality. But no, thank you. What we want to do is that this community as an LGBT has to be there for everyone in case of someone struggling with their own sexuality. Now, imagine a situation in any kind of homophobic community. In any kind of homophobic community, there needs to be some way to get out. You need to have support around. You need to have people that say you that it's okay. If you have a situation where there's no one to support you and no alternative to be seen, you will be closeted for the rest of your life. You'll be in trouble. You'll be in stress. And what this means is that this kind of stressful relationship with your own community ends up with something, well, I don't know, in worst case, suicide, in lesser case, a lifelong depression. No, thank you. Now, what we want to see with our community is that we want to build up a liquid sexuality dogma. Not dogma, but let's say a statement. A statement that sexuality isn't anymore something that should be exclusive, but sexuality is something that should be inclusive. What this means? This means that with our acceptance of different kind of communities, we say that we accept everyone's own definition of their sexuality. As a community, we should be there to support them. We should be saying behind them that this is okay, everything is fine. Now, for the practical issues. Now, why should we be there? Why should the LGBT community be there? Well, first of all, community building as itself isn't easy. You should be actively present. You should be actively present to show yourself. For example, if this side-B community member is now in trouble, what should he do? How should he react on the situation of seeing sin? Now the church, no thank you all the time, the church they're presenting has a radical response to that. They're saying pray the gay away. As we see those pray the gay away camps now have the situation where they actually use violence, electrocute and shock people over there to actually pray the gay away. What we don't want to see is the very same thing happening. Now how does this happen? They don't have any kind of alternatives in this situation where to turn to. What we need to do is that we need to be present there. Active presence means that LGBT community, by being there, is actually supporting those people, is nearer as the church. Because how we see the present thing is that church is next door to side-B community. What we want as an LGBT community is to be also next door to them, so they would have a way out if there's a situation. Now, thank you, and please vote closing government.
I thank Speaker and I would like to welcome the member of opposition.
I'll start in a second. I'm sorry. Okay, let's start. Before start, we want to understand more why we have responsibilities to those people, to rescue them, to provide them a better life, etc. Why are the specialties of these groups to add to our community, etc. There is no clear analysis of that, so there is there is some problem about those analysis. First of all, they are saying that interpretations of religions, they can interpretation of something, etc. However, interpretation of religion is not that easy thing for them. Because of religion is something dogmatic, right? They know that they will be they will be burned in the afterlife, or God will punish them. So it's hard for the making interpretations about it, because it's a not real thing. It's a metaphysic, right? So they are fearing about that. So they choose to interpret not in for our what we want, but they cannot make interpretations what the government side want. Secondly, LGBT for every people, but this is not the case. This is their own decision. We are LGBT movements are there for the people that overcome the situation that live the side-B Christians. They overcome the situation that the side-B Christians live, and they are brave enough to live their life, right? We are there for those people. We need to protect those people from the pressure and try hard to provide them a better world. This is our main purpose. Two things in my speech. First, we shouldn't spend our energy. No, thank you. We shouldn't spend our energy as a group to those people. And secondly, why it is important to stay as radical as much as possible to provide them a better world. First of all, why we shouldn't spend our energy as a group for those people? Because we have so many difficulties in social life, in political life, in everyday life, right? As a LGBT movement and LGBT persons. We need to focus on those problems. We need to get our political rights. We need to get our social rights. We need to be equal with others and destroy the heteronormative world. So there are so many issues that we need to struggle in both political life and social life. But what if we spend our energy inside be Christians? They are already suspicious about their situation, right? And they are already suspicious about for our movement and the LGBT person and their sexual activities, etc. They are under the pressures of religion. What kind of pressure? We said that it's hard for them to overcome those pressures. It has very power on those people to overcome those changes. So it is not such easy thing. So we need to spend our time on the streets. We need to get our political rights from the governments. We need to tell the people that this is not right thing. Heteronormative world is not a good thing. The heteronormative life is the thing that we need to force to be believe, etc. What if we spend our energy to those people? There might be some conflict within the group. This is a very bad thing for us because LGBT movement is a heterogeneous group, and we have some purposes. There are the people that have some purposes and some aims for their lives to get a better life, to get their rights, etc. So, for example, think about that. We have another group that have suspicions about my sexual activities. They want, for example, they don't want to be told with me about those issues. They don't want to hear and get solutions to those our sexual actions problems, etc., etc. So we can feel that those people are not from us, and those people are and side B Christians may have some suspicions and not get close to us in the LGBT movements. So why it is a bad thing? It's a bad thing because we need to stay together. We need to think as together because we have minorities. We have pressures from the huge important actors such as governments, such as conservative societies, etc. So we need to be together as much as possible to get our rights. However, this will decrease the heterogeneity of the homogeneity of the group, and also it will decrease the motivation of the LGBT activists in the moment. For example, I'm a gay person and I have a sexual action with my boyfriend, and he thinks that I did a sinful activities and just looking bad or just not closing to me nicely, etc. So this will also decrease my motivation. However, we have motivation to struggle with those problems. Secondly, why it's important to stay as radical as much as possible. Before start, let's come.
But there's already within the LGBT community with some gay members a dispute between the bisexuals that they're less or not worthy enough. Why shouldn't we throw either of them out of the LGBT community?
Sorry, fast, would you please?
Again, bisexuals and gays are already fighting within the LGBT community, some of them, for example. Why shouldn't we throw out one or the other of them?
Because we have sexual actions right there, they have no such at the point of view. They can close suspicious to us, so our purpose is something different. They have, yes, sexual problems in their life, however, not like us, so this may create problems. That's why we couldn't stay them together. Why it's important to stay together radical as much as possible? Because we have no choice to make those people radical in favor of our purpose because of their suspicion, because of their religious view, religious belief, etc. They are so strong among them, those religion views. We are not going to win our rights without being radical. How? We need people who believe our purpose, aims, think that our sexual activity is normal as much as hetero people, and should know what are the threats for our happiness and well-being. We need those people. Those threats are also the people who are close to side B Christians, and side B Christians have close relations with them. So there are also threats for us, the people who are close with the side B Christians, but they have no such idea. We need to show them we are angry to heteronormative world, heteronormative politicians, even heteronormative some religious men. We need to show the world what we want to. That's what makes us strong, even with less number. We need to stay as decision. We need to show the world that we are the lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, intersex people that want they want to accept our sexual activity as normal as heterosexual people. So that will be better for our LGBT movement. That's why we need to stay together and exclude such groups in our LGBT movement. That's why we are in the opposition. Thank you.
I thank speaker, and I would like to welcome Torma here.
Okay, ready.
Dear panel, the idea of the LGBT movement is not about what people think about them, but how people act towards them. It's not important whether another person thinks that you are acting according to God or not according to God, but whether they let you act, not attack you violently, give you rights, etc. That is why we see that it is very important for the LGBT movement to be as inexclusive as possible, to include all those groups and to move all those groups and not cut them off as they want to do. So what I'm going to do is first offer you a few points of, separate rebuttal that is necessary to clash with the opponent's points, and then talk about the fluidity of sexuality, and under that also clash with the dehumanization point that we heard from the closing opposition. Then talk about dangers currently faced by side-B Christians and why LGBT movement should deal with these dangers, and then offer you a comparative with dangers they have offered that they might, bring to the LGBT movement. So, okay, let's start first with a few points of rebuttal. We heard from the second speaker of the opening opposition that, the point of this debate is to defend side-B Christians. The team that provides them with the best life is the one that wins this debate. That is ironic because that's not what their first speaker did. The first speaker said that we need to protect the LGBT movement as itself, to exclude those people from the movement. We asked the BOI from them about them. Would they cut those people off, even if they wanted to include themselves in the group? And they said yes, because they would bring harm. So they have they are not even stable within their team. They're defending two different things. Secondly, we see that, those people are not harming the movement from inside, but more about that under my own point. Secondly, they say that, the LGBT movement should not try to catch those people, should not try to actively include those people because they cannot promise them a better community. That is also not true, because first of all, they are painting a picture of all those people being hardcore Christians, going to church, having a large community, every day being part of that. Like my speaker already said, that is not true. Christianity is a wide spectrum, side-B Christians are a wide spectrum. Some of them are hardcore religious, some of them just think God exists, and is simple, but maybe don't even visit church. They all live in different sized community, and they all face different paths. So there is not one exclusive community that we're cutting them away from them. And secondly, LGBT groups can defend them up under my own point, so we see that we're also winning that. So okay, let's talk about fluidity of sexuality and how LGBT movement works. We see that, LGBT movement is trying to protect as many sides of sexuality as possible, saying that every single thing is possible. We heard from the CEO that, they need to keep the group homogenized. We also heard that from the opening side, when somebody comes in with different ideas, it will weaken the group. We see that that is not true. First of all, let's look at the history of the, LGBT movement and homosexual movement. It has, brought in extra groups as time goes on. It started as, just gay people looking for their rights. And then, we started accepting peace. We started accepting trans people. First it was LGBT, then it's LGBTQ, then it's LGBTQ plus. We're adding all those different groups to them as well. Now let's add side-B Christians, because we see that that is also an important group that needs to be represented, that needs to be defended. And we see that, just because they are included in the group doesn't mean they weaken the group. Why? Why are we saying that? First of all, like my father always said, this group is the best to face with those things. They're facing with discrimination every day. They're facing with, rhetoric that what they're doing sinful every day. Now when somebody comes to their meeting and says it to themselves, they are the best prepared to deal with it. They're the best prepared to offer counter arguments and stuff like that. Secondly, we see that, they have never proven to us that when side-B Christians are being approached by those movements, when they go to those meetings, they will start saying it's all sinful, they will start all this hateful rhetoric. Why should they? Why? Not every Christian in this world is trying to, make every other Christian also Christian or believe those same things. They can go to those groups and have a nice, peaceful discussion, talk about different ideas and talk about those urges. Secondly, we see that, this LGBT movement is also important to those side-B Christians because, we see that those side-B Christians are trying to exist with two competing ideas. I want to be loyal to God, but I also have those sexual urges that I somehow need to keep down. We see that, when we accept that this is an okay way of living, we see that the LGBT movement is also very good, positive output of helping them achieve that, because they understand those sexual urges in the best way. So not only can they say that, those ideas are okay, but even if they can accept those ideas that maybe you want to repress those urges and also help them face those. Now, let's talk about danger faced by Christians currently, but first open up.
We can include people in a group. We're going to go into a group and ask the people's beliefs and try and tell them that their beliefs are sinful, even though they want to be. If you want to have these beliefs, it's fine, but you cannot be expected to be included in a group where your various beliefs undermine what the rest of the people sort of say. And we don't think it's a safe place to have debates because people have been debating themselves very like you don't to defend themselves against people.
Okay, first of all, we are not saying side B Christians are going against everything LGBT movement says. I already explained to you like 3.5 minutes of this material. LGBT movement has a wide spectrum of ideas. It says that sexuality is fluid, and there can be a sexuality that says God is okay, and feeling gay feelings is okay, and not living on them is okay. So it's not going against it. And my partner already told you about arguments already happening in the LGBT movement. We think it leads to better things, it leads to better results. Okay. I'm running out of time. Now, talking about tensions faced currently by side B Christians, we see that, first of all, we see that, they face discrimination as any other gay people. The coast that go to church are not all included, like we already said. They are already, being, often left out of their communities, and they're very discrimination. But more importantly, even what my teammate told you about is, gay therapy. We see that, a lot of churches and a lot of gay movements are actively trying to cure gay from people. They are saying that, this is a sin and this is something we can fix. We see that they are the most vulnerable group. They are most likely to go along with it because, they are living in a world of, discomfort. Two ideas clashing with each other, making them not enjoy life. So, of course, they're going to look for solutions. Currently, the only ones actively going out to them, actively reaching out, are the churches with their gay therapy. They're saying, we have a solution, we have a situation, but that solution does not work. It's been scientifically proven. What they're doing is, at best, maybe having a little praise circle. At worst, they are using violence, shocking those people by showing them pornographic materials to make them feel discomfortable. These will leave those people scarred for lives. A large amount of those people will commit suicide. Those are not the things we want. So we see that even if we assume that those people inside the LGBT community are going to, maybe harm it a bit, maybe have a discussion, let's assume they're correct, then under our model, at least we're saving them from physical pain, we're saving them from suicide, and we're saving the most vulnerable group who currently only has one option. Now we're giving them a second one. We are reaching out and actively showing them this is not the only option. You can exist in different ways in this life. You do not have to go through this pain in order to exist as a human being. We think it's very important, and that's why we stand in the side of this motion.
And thanks, speaker, for that speech, and would like to welcome the last speaker of this debate, the opposition leader.
Okay, I may start. I will go anti-chronologically. First, we will analyze what they have said to us, especially the closing team of the government. Their main stance is, they said that we have to protect side B Christians because they are suffering, etc. We are telling you that we have no responsibility for these people because we shouldn't care about side B Christians because they are not valuable for us. Why? Because they are actually work against us at the history because they are producing a belief system in our society and they put argumentation and they call our actions as a sins. Therefore, we were struggling against these kind of arguments. In the history we were burned from the Christians. We were murdered because of these kind of ideas. So we have no responsibility, and their damages, their hurting power to us, it means that drives us that we can neglect these kind of people in order to care the more important cases. Actually, in the case that they have also preferred Christianity and they pursue their ideas and they pursue their perceptions because they remained Christian and not to have sex. They didn't seek out their natural rights, right? Having sex is very important in life. So if you reject that in your life, it means that you strongly bonded to your Christian beliefs, and we cannot convince them in order to work for our community and work for our movement later on.
They also defended that being LGBT actions, our sexual lives, as a sin. Therefore, we got trouble in every aspect of the society. Therefore, they actually in my question we also mentioned that we shouldn't care about that because they always hurt us. So and also his summary says that in history we are expanding our community. For example, we started with LGB and we added some kind of things, but you have to analyze the background of these people, background of these communities. Their resemblance doesn't mean that we have to add on these kind of people in our society. They, yes, resemble, but they work against us. But the other people are discriminated in the society, and we got some incentives to save them. Therefore, we have to save the more important people, like for example the people who are LGBT but couldn't discover himself. Actually, our scarcity of energy and human capital, social capital, should be used on these people because they never hurt us, and we have responsibility because we share the same fate.
Right. Let's stop with this Christian bashing. You know, LGBT community already accepts great Christians. What's the difference?
Off topic, I guess. Let's go to the opening side of the government. They say that actually we should increase our base. But if you claim these kind of arguments, you have to tell us that how do you convince these people, because they are religious people and they already choose to remain in Christianity. Therefore, actually, this is very hard to convince them, because when we convince them, we will tell them to join our community, and joining our community means that you should producing sins. Okay, if you reject your sexual life in order to save your afterlife, it means that you are strong beliefs and strong arguments to having this trade-off. Therefore, it is very hard to convince them. But instead of that, we, as Christ said, we have scarcity of resources as a human capital, so we should focus on, and we should work on the more important parts of the society. So what we have tell you. We tell you that, and I guess convinced you that we have no responsibility because the closing governments have primitive linkages in the chain, so we break through the responsibility part, and their main stance is diminished and demolished actually. Then actually we said that we have to choose the innocent part of the our community, but they are not innocent. Since they are existed, they worked against us. But we can't now say subjugated LGBT people, which are remain very minority in some aspects of the societies. We can save them, and how we can save them. Kretsch already told us that our methodology. We should be radical. We should be radical to increase our power, because we are in terms of quantity, we are minority in most societies. Therefore, if we show our power against to the ones heteronormative who is in power, we should show our teeth, and we should be radical about that. So in this case, if we give some concessions towards the Christian part of, which is the mainly anti of our perception of life, if we add them into our community, it means that we give concessions about that. We will make
actual members of our community that this stressful etc. Therefore, we are actually saving these people in our community. So the main problem was their languages is so primitive, and we actually they couldn't prove us that we have responsibility against those people. Therefore, we are proud to be in the right side, which is opposition. Thank you.
And thanks, speaker, and I thank you all for this debate. As you know, this is a closed round, so feedback is only going to happen after the break. Preferably find me sober. That may increase the accuracy of my explanation a lot. But yeah, thank you. See you later.